Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Nerach.
She Claare Gael was Gael Tyre Cartnish, a smile amos altige. My name is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert the Carslach.
Have I heard tell of old Bobby Bob?
And I'm here to present Claare Gael bilingually, because one part of it is in the English language, as fair to Pertelia G. Sigilg, and because there's another part of it in the Manx Gaelic, Chinianamera, the mother tongue of Ellan Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Mubarak the Drish. Manin Veg Bean, William Gell's 1906 poem, concentrates in its final part on Castle Rushen, and particularly its association with the Stanleys, who provided, he says, its king and queen. John Seacombe's 1793 book about the House of Stanley provides more information with the, well, as long as we don't rely on it too heavily, I think is the way of describing it. He does take little adventures on the way. Ten Brerach and Grim Cor Ashen Pootle ben egg de Cornenemect and Skielshaw. Ashen shen de Reik o Choneltrish Lai, as Pootle visas Voglerach Armenisch en Nerd Hesse, as te chit nien vrach en nien chollach, maar so Callion the Lai de Jaru. The Breton band Djibujep focused on songs of the sea, or, as in this case, a seaport. And in this seaport it's a case of chercher la femme, because they sing about les filles de l'Orient. Towers geestiach rish radio banning, station en ashun, with scholar scalia mach by Dulish, Alan Banning.
Les filles de l'Orient, mon Dieu, qu'elles sont jolies, allons-là. Mon Dieu, qu'elles sont jolies. S'en vont le soir se promener jolies. S'en vont le soir se promener le long la calorie, long là, le long la calorie, en regardant de vers la mer jolie, en regardant de vers la mer, elles ont vu trois navires, long là, elles ont vu trois navires. Arrive au matelot joli, arrive au matelot, te souhaite une bonne arrive, l'on là, te souhaite une bonne arrive, et si mon mari est dedans joli, et si mon mari est dedans, encore meilleur arrive, l'on là, encore meilleur arrive, et si mon mari n'y est pas joli, et si mon mari n'y est pas, au diable vos navires, l'on là, au diable vos navires, ce sont les filles de l'Orient jolies, ce sont les filles de l'Orient. Mon Dieu, qu'elles sont jolies, Lona. Mon Dieu, qu'elles sont jolies.
The shanty band Jibujeb that formed in Lorient in 1970. Apparently they're still going in one form, but they changed their name to just Jibu in 2020 following the death of one of their founder members, Michael Yaon. But there they sang of the girls of their hometown, Les Filles de Lorient. John Seacombe suggests some difference between the eagle and child crest as devised by Sir Thomas Latham, whose subterfuge it was to make his wife Lady Joan accept the son he'd fathered by another woman, Mary Oscartel, he even christened the boy Oscartel Latham, and the eagle and child crest adopted by Sir John Stanley on his marriage to Sir Thomas's daughter Isabel. Seacombe says that Sir John Stanley has the eagle glowering down on the child in its nest in swaddling clothes as its prey, and he says that this was to mock Oscartel, who Sir Thomas had intended to make his heir, but on his deathbed apparently repented and made Isabel his heir. I've not actually found the illustration. I mentioned I found a crest of a Latham crest with an eagle on it, but there was no child on it. The eagle was just looking out behind it towards the left. And anyway, Sir Oscartel Latham was very well provided for by his father and went on to establish an illustrious branch of the Latham family. So, as ever, it's always prudent to question sources, as John Seacombe himself does in connection with the whole story of the eagle and child. Ta moir ben eg ang edden bes as ti golgus an ai as ti coas en. Beggen na san mi tan erek puserish, as ta de ni necke geben cheshen o, as ta ginu faget jen lias hurek, as dat korori kiau shan groen lie, as de havrige de kruise chamer early. Gen el jabi ek de golde lai, as die niet de gadle tjollig maast een smeregen doe. As de maso ti jonach, ti broch, as marso te slaigreiri ashenpoetel. Tret een ek golgus a verge, ti braich jen del jassen ek na ted giri. As tad braich son Adrian Brouwers perlen as cleginen, maar so te corleshen en son. Ren ashenpoetel braich je de corleshen chid twig voor boelen nine edegge red de valje. Gouds we gold bear glass, ren twig howl boelen nine edegge, as maar so ren ig jare weishen, as huggy gus ashenpoetel. Ren query aie mere, as ren na jere corustjede, as des twig de ve na vilje brouw. Wel, de ancient Pyrenees slugged en na brerig en grim chit a bilje brouw en shaw, son een goed smoe ons a skeel shot had greid en eight tamag chowlton, and she be shen with it alia. For the concerts of the Mona's Isle, the legacy of Mona Douglas project, Ellen Clegg wrote this song.
Schache.
Spatten. As ribbenen, spinjegen tune.
Helen Clegg and her song Sny from Mona's Isle, the legacy of Mona Douglas. Hi Ashen Pootle dag and the Billia and Tamag, three Keirton Soleil, as Rennie Co was Gael Pager. As daar Keert, Jerry sus Ushag Ben by an Billia, as Mubby Chit der Wisher be, ban Ushag Corley G, Claare be bear a hon vi wishel. Henke de bay, the Ren and Ree, Cor Sarah de Bech Felion, Rish Tree Lane, as for Quira Ullian am Ren Ega Ellen Jane Cheershen, de Hit, de Bech Ke de Macquarie, Rai Ben Fusi by na Mastock. Trechil and Dale Jas Nien drau Quira Orusen de Bekion Finish, Deni ad vier wooiach, as Dilia der Ashen Pootle as Dortad, Gin Kira a Faltine, Gin Skaben a Breganine, as Gin Chon the Buglanine, Tashin Golga Skins a Vanish ons Castle and Ree. Raun jaartig Ashen Pootle trechili shoach de Genia, son bebai liesnies Golgas a Gin Stounce, as Rennie wee al jas voirech de Chorkiedji. Gamma, os Ashen Pootle, dort jas voirech. As something else that Seacombe refers to is a time when Sir John Stanley had been displaying his fighting skills in tournaments on the continent. A French champion came to England and issued a challenge, which was accepted by Sir John Stanley, and King Edward III directed that a tournament be held at Winchester. According to Seacombe, the tournament was held, and John Stanley killed the French champion. Tournaments, particularly those arranged by Edward III, were for entertainment, and in his younger days Edward himself used to take part. There were deaths, but these were accidental, so perhaps this killing of the French champion at Winchester by John Stanley was, well, some sort of ceremonial acknowledgement rather than actual death. But I've not been able to find out anything specific about this great tournament at Winchester. However, King Edward III died in 1377, so it would have to have been before then, when Sir John Stanley would have been in his early 20s. harp of Sarah Dear Jones playing music from Cornwall, with Estren, a stranger, giving way to Porthlistry, which is a Cornish name for Newquay. Sarah Dear Jones herself is based a good bit further north from Newquay. She's in the countryside near Bude.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Stasiwn yn asiwn dy Radio Fanning ys i Claare na Gael fys reclash yn Cartnish, mer yn pyn Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert y Carslach.
Ever heard tell of owl Bobby Bob?
Rys siacht yn lwg dy Claare na Gael gyr ysgelia mach, ta ced eisiach ry rys, trwyd unedeg y Radio Fanning ys yn craman eis rys. Ta podcast gen genius, y sien rygedyn nasty ag unedeg y Radio Fanning, na trwyd yn rai cher y podcast ed, fel sien Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. John Seacombe has a 20-odd-year-old John Stanley addressing favours to Isabel Latham at Winchester. Now, this is where you have to check your sources, I suppose. Well, she was born about 1365, so she'd only have been about 10 at that time. Her father, Sir Thomas, died in 1382 and on his deathbed apparently made her his main heir. Actually, again, Seacombe says that she was his sole offspring, but as far as I can see, he had some other sons. I think they may even have died just after their father, but literally just after, perhaps before they reached the age of 21. But Isabel certainly became the heiress. Isabel was to inherit Sir Thomas Latham's main estates at Latham and Knowsley, an extensive area of South Lancashire. However, in the year of her father's death, Isabel had married, and the man she married was Geoffrey Worsley, of another prominent Lancashire family. They had a daughter, Elizabeth, born about 1384, a Worsley who later married a Worsley and had 3 sons. But Sir Geoffrey didn't last much longer. He died at the age of about 40 in 1385. At that time, Isabel would have been about 20, so while Sir Geoffrey may have been expecting to take on his wife's rich inheritance when she came of age, he unfortunately died just prior to that. On Isabel's remarriage in 1385, the beneficiary was her second husband, Sir John Stanley. On soliw John as a vroidet, ta was geri gulgus a jins door de liasvoer rishashen pootel. Us, as na wel gooned, as na wel bregened, ta was geri downsa. Ach nod renny freilrish braiacht, verjere door de liasvoeri. Tam skelie mag just ledden de lentelen sa lai, as me visse chitlia trogel soes olju jou rish ons deur, bi kiddut golmerin. Esh haie vojen gestors na coolia, veli jail mag gesagere, as jilly mag, O chalmen en mila, o chalmen en co, dach ushag ton tammy guieriu, na lentelen tamishnin lai salai, trogshu ad mahon masalju, stjachlia once a gist, na fear vai, gaushu je firelian en rai. Esh henkus onja gechemer early, der chalmen ben, as nin lug cus de chalmen en co. As verjere, chonnel je ulju en lienli foon spare, as utsen giga as benelt, as henked gus a tollu salai. Now this is the voice of Paddy Riley. Well, it's not really a song about himself, it's one of Percy French's compositions, but it's called Come Back, Paddy Riley, to Bally James Duff.
The Garden of Eden has vanished, they say, but I know the lie of it still. Just turn to the left at the Bridge of Finney and stop when halfway to Coot Hill. 'Tis there you will find it, I know sure. enough when fortune has come to my call. The grass, it grows green around Ballyjames stuff, and the blue sky is over it all. In tones that are tender and tones that are rough, I'm whispering over the sea. Come back, Paddy Riley, to Ballyjames stuff. Come home, Paddy Riley, to me. My mother once told me that when I was born, the day that I first saw the light, I looked down that street on the very first morn and gave a great crow of delight. Now most newborn babies appear in a huff and start with a sorrowful squall. But I knew I was born in Ballyjames stuff, and that's why I smiled at them all. The baby's a man now, he's toil-worn and tough, still whispers from over the sea. Come back, Paddy Riley, to Ballyjames stuff. Come home, Paddy Riley, to me.
The singer Paddy Riley from Rathcoole, County Dublin, but there he was singing about coming back to Ballyjames Duff, which is in County Cavan. But then the composer of it, Percy French, was from County Roscommon, so it's all artistic licence really. Ren na Calmen and snoggle lesh na Kingock, as gawe toyach der spilge spulge spilge spulge, as esh ga ulje na Firelia spilge spulge spilge spulge, as huggad ulje na greinen mai stjachse gist. Brosh mrau oer engel sha, ve ulje jint, as jettel a de soel. Esh ran a voygen corri a giskus a lias voirek, as vi gennacht en bogoil, as smunje nish de jinnachig ulgus a jint stouts. Ach, doort en lias voir, Gan nadu gol ashen poetel, gan el edian kjart bied, as gan el vised een achtergaunse, as je nog sly kredje moed. As treer een ashen poetel kenia, no drau ik wish mollet, doort dinies, me vis e chitlat troggle nis just lend de lentil en assen lie, as Hudson Myers Glen, niugel meren. As is smunnion riheen no na wel shen possible. Trevi scale macht just lend de lentil en salai, high a voyagin through dors na coolia. When Isabel married Sir John Stanley, with her coming of age as heiress of Latham and Knowsley, Sir John Stanley adopted her father's crest of the Eagle and Child. Perhaps it was, as Seacombe suggests, to mock the child supposedly brought by the Eagle, Sir Oscatel, but it seems just as likely that Sir John was acknowledging his good fortune as a younger son of the Stanley family, coming into the Latham and Knowsley estates through his wife, and of course he would show this by adopting her father's crest. After Sir John Stanley's success at Winchester, After John Stanley's success at Winchester, he'd been knighted by King Edward III, and Seacombe says that Oscartel Latham was knighted on the same occasion. However, bearing in mind that Isabel would have been a 10-year-old child, perhaps 11 or 12, Oscartel would have been younger, so he wouldn't have been knighted at that time at all. But this is what Seacombe says. Sir John Stanley then, after some time of address, gained an entire conquest of her, that's Isabel Latham, and all her favours, by an honourable marriage. Now for a tale of two dragons, and of course the Draig Och, the red dragon, comes out on top in this song by Welsh band Callan.
The sky, the sun it rose with morning, but those walls had tumbled down. The castle stones had crumbled and lay scattered on the ground. There came a boy along the way, a child with magic powers, and he said, "You'll build nothing here, you can dig away for hours. Beneath this mountain you will find two dragons sleep at night. Dig down deep and let them wake and let those dragons fight."
Welsh band Callan, Tale of Two Dragons. Well, Seacombe has Sir John Stanley courting Isabel Latham and finally securing an honourable marriage, though, he says, with the unwilling consent of her father, whose reasons will be particularised hereafter. In the interim, let us leave Sir John in pursuit of his honours and amours, in which the reader shall be fully informed. Well, the reason for her father's unwilling consent seems to be a reference to the Eagle and Child here, perhaps again, the intention of making Oscartel Latham his main heir rather than his daughter Isabel. However, that changed apparently on his deathbed in 1382. But on the other hand, of course, we are talking about 1382. Perhaps Sir John had tried to present his suit for Isabel's hand, and Sir Thomas had been against it, preferring the ill-fated Sir Geoffrey Worsley. Because it wasn't until 3 years after Sir Thomas's death that Isabel married Sir John Stanley, and that was on the death of her first husband, Sir Geoffrey, by whom she'd already borne a daughter, as I mentioned, Elizabeth. So Seacombe rather shortens the sequence of events and passes over a number of details in describing all this. Hai ashen footel mach as Doris na Coolia, as stiach sa gera, as dilly mach. O chalmenen mila, o chalmenen co, dachoshag ton, tammy guieriu, na lentilin, ta nishnin lai, salai, trogshuad mahon masaliu, stiachlia once a gist na fear vai, gaushu je firelia nin rai. Esh henkus unya gehemer early, der chalmen ben, as nin lorg, cus de chalmenen co, as verjere channel J. Ullion na yeenly phone spare, as utsen giga as benelt, as henket gus a talus a lie. Maar so henkus unje gehemer early der chalmen, gamalish would dashin aven jinushen, as verjere channel de yeenly phone spare, as utsen giga as benelt, as ren na calmen and snoggle lesh na kingok, as gauw toyacht spilga spulga, as esh gauw ullion a firelia spilga spulga, as hugged ullion a grind and mai, stiach suggest. Music by Scottish quartet Nos, fiddler Graham Rory and guitarist Aidan Moody from Orkney, whistle player Conor Sinclair from Perth and Craig Baxter from Stirling on Bowron. The tune was Kiefer Hill. Kiefer Hill pretty much makes up the entire island, the small island of Swona in the Orkneys, now inhabited only by feral cattle.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Sure that Stasiwn and Asiwn Radio Vanning, as thou was geestiach Carnish, Rish Claare na Gael, Mish Robert Gitting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Did the ever hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
As the rosh morau lieu rangol sha, ve olju jint, as jettel adder soul. Esh, ren na voyage and corlina gisten gussel jas voirek, as vi gennacht and bog oil, as smunja nish the jinnach gol gusse jins downs. Ach, doorty. Ta olju jay shaw ons voordeel de han, gaan nadu chit meren, no wel edian kuied as no bodu downsa. Jennachus tar njere oren. Esh en day de chore dream gesashen putelwach, as we drissory de golle red merischen de nien bornachek. As no rau pecher beer marnse tai, hai ashen putel gus aie mere, foon tamag gaul, as jilly mach. Wil je beg, miskin gin cray, a scalia as erget noes, de vodum scoil de care. Esh ren a nusje cow noes, goon jay as erget, as pyr de vragen lech it lesh as erget, as lesh slendrissory huggy moye goon as high gesiens. Seacombe goes on. As for our disconsolate friend Sir Oscatel, we shall only observe at present that, though degraded and supplanted in a fair inheritance, yet we have brought him to his age, and placed him at the head of a large patrimony and new family of the same name as his father, which his rivals couldn't boast of. Well, he sees Isabel and Sir John Stanley as rivals, but of course, Oscatel is a Latham, while Isabel's name has been subsumed beneath that of Stanley. Again, bearing in mind she'd already been Lady Worsley before becoming Lady Stanley. By the time of the marriage of John and Isabel in 1385, Sir John had already come to some prominence, as Seacombe reports. With regard to his honour, some time after his encounter with and victory over the aspiring French combatant, King Edward III died, and King Richard II was advanced to the throne, who, in the first year of his reign, honoured Sir John Stanley with a commission to Ireland. This is another Breton shanty band, and they're called Cabistan, and here they sing in Gallo a song called Le Vieux la Vieille.
La vieille, elle avait vu que le vieux, il voyait plus, mais le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien. La vieille, elle avait vu que le vieux, il voyait plus, mais le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien.
Mon père n'avait fille que moi. Le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien.
Mon père n'avait fille que moi. Le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien.
Encore sur la mer, il m'envoie. La vieille, elle avait vu que le vieux, il voyait plus, mais le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien.
La vieille, elle avait vu que le vieux, il voyait plus, mais le vieux, il voyait bang. La vieille, elle voyait rien.
Encore sur la mer, il m'envoie. Le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Encore sur la mer, il m'envoie. Le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Le marinier qui m'y menait, la vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Le marinier qui m'y menait, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Le marinier qui m'y menait, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Il devint amoureux de moi, la vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Il devint amoureux de moi, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Il devint amoureux de moi, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
À chaque fois qu'il me disait, la vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
À chaque fois qu'il me disait, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
À chaque fois qu'il me disait, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La mignonnette embrassez-moi, la vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La mignonnette embrassez-moi, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La mignonnette embrassez-moi, le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
Oh non monsieur, je n'oserais, la vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la vieille voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux voyait plus, mais le vieux voyait bien que la la vieille voyait rien.
Car si mon papa le savait, le vieux y voyait bien que la vieille y voyait rien.
Car si mon papa le savait, le vieux y voyait bien que la vieille y voyait rien.
Fille battue, ce serait moi. La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux y voyait plus, mais le vieux y voyait bien que la vieille y voyait rien.
La vieille elle avait vu que le vieux y voyait plus, mais le vieux y voyait bien que la vieille y voyait rien.
The Breton shanty group Cabistan, which you may not be surprised to know is a rendition of the word capstan. Sir John Stanley was appointed by King Richard II as Lord Chief Justice of Ireland. However, Richard II was deposed in 1399 and Henry Bolingbroke became Henry IV. He was born in Bolingbroke Castle in Lincolnshire. Henry IV recognised Sir John Stanley's power and ability and appointed him Lord Lieutenant of Ireland in 1400. This was the time of Owain Glyndŵr, Prince of Wales. Factions in England saw an opportunity to unite with Owain Glyndŵr, not to support the Welsh, but to rock the English monarchy. One such was Henry Percy, the Earl of Northumberland. One rebellion was thwarted at the Battle of Shrewsbury in 1403, but the Earl himself wasn't there, so he wasn't convicted of treason. In 1405 the tripartite indenture was signed, whereby Owain Glyndŵr would get Wales and part of the west of England, Percy would get the north of England, but also Northamptonshire, Norfolk, Warwickshire and Leicestershire, and Edmund Mortimer, the Earl of March, was to get the rest of England south of the Trent. Harawen nori egel jas voor na eg na siúrachan, as wat smunion de likli de rawi na ven Prince Jori, choelen as vi jean sa goon oilek. Jay ashen pootel gerau smunion biok, as wat shielden de beachish na sai stai, as troggal soos lentelen as a lie. Henk Macquarie na quail, as gawe I a lau, as renne downsa Mary, as renny gobble de vee na cadanegge de gaunsa Mary's pecher bielje, nach dodde ve ersen liege sere lauek. As tre Henk pecher bielje de goile lauek streggere, pien team or shesha. As tre Henke fast de beg vi giri gul de valje, ach door de prins de jinnech eschen gul Mary de gul kereelji, no de rawe giri vagen de bol van voigen ellen bege. Ach renny skepeelwosh, as renny limmes jachs a tai kalmen. Esch ren de prins vorrachten der Henken as dinche de rawe voigen jou gagen limmes jachs a tai kalmen. Now this is a setting of a poem by Mona Douglas, The Garden by Dave MacLean, for the Mona's Isle, the Legacy of Mona Douglas project, and it's sung by Claire Kilgallen.
There's a little sheltered garden in the hollow of the hill, where the air with sweet bird music is a thrill, and the fragrant summer breeze whispers softly to the trees of the old world grace that lingers in its day. There's a riot in the garden of the hollyhocks abloom, and the honeysuckle's airy golden fume. There the rambler roses blow, and the foxgloves gleam and glow, where Madonna lilies spread their sweet perfume. the swaying flowers of Columbine. But the magic of the garden lieth not in tree or flower, or the rivers passing slowly hour by hour. For a lady young and fair long ago was placed on there, and her spirit seems to linger in the bough. So I love to watch the garden in the mellow evening light, when the sunset glow makes all the flower heads bright. And I often seem to see in the fragrant rosary just a glimmer of her trailing gown of white. There I watch until the sunset sky is strewn with great cloud spars, and the drift light lies them low down golden bars. Then I softly turn away in the shadow dim and grey, and the garden sleeps beneath the windswept stars. And the garden sleeps beneath the windswept stars.
Claire Kilgallen, RBV, with words by Mona Douglas, set to music by Dave McLean. The Garden. Smunny and airish and heen, son shigeris and nod shaw ve ashen pootle, as Gillia mach son taien as cryinen, as van taikal men ernel jegel, a grauwpeger beyond. As tre haids jaachs a tai, on shen ve ashen pootle na sai ons den Edian brachek master na smareg and doe, as ve cressid lost the fess a chimley. When the Percys were involved in another rebellion in 1405, their estates were confiscated by Henry IV, and that included the Kingdom of Man, which had been granted to Henry Percy in 1399. Henry IV awarded the kingship to Sir John Stanley in 1405, at that time just for the term of his own life, but then in 1406 it was made inheritable. Cart the Maya Shene by Claare Gael and Geert. Between 7 and 9, Christy de Haven brings you the best of chill-out music for your Sunday evening, and at 9 o'clock Judith Lay will be here with Sundown. It's a Woolly Monkey that closes Claare Gael this time. Woolly Monkey is the title of a piece by prolific Cornish tunesmith Neil Davey, and is played here by the Cornish band Dalla. As Mersot and Treyer dit de Gorkion Claire Gael as Mersault. Until the next time then, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert de Carselach.
Oh, Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve I'm a Griorts, as Duts, me Yeri and Share.